Game 2 of the preseason, a win for the Pacers, and more importantly, the lottery picks of recent years were terrific. Ben Mathurin and Jarace Walker stepped up and clouded some not-so-good stuff. We'll talk about it all today on the Locked On Pacers podcast.
You are Locked On Pacers, your daily Indiana Pacers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What up, y'all? Happy Friday. Congrats, you made it through the week, and welcome into another edition of the Locked On Pacers podcast, where we, of course, talk about the Indiana Pacers. As always, my name's Tony East. I cover the team for Forbes and SI, and today we're diving into preseason game 2 for the Pacers, a win in Cleveland over the Cavaliers. Results don't matter in the preseason, but they did win this time. What really mattered was some good stuff, like, wow, their recent lottery picks were good in the same game. What we learned about their rotation, we saw some mixing and matching of the top 10 for the first time. Myles Turner and Isaiah Jackson back in the mix. Enrique Freeman, whoa. James Wiseman on the glass, whoa. And some not so good stuff. Defense, yikes. Cole Swider makes some shots. Can someone make shots? Some not so good mixed in as well. We'll start with the headlining story takeaway from this game, though, and that is really Ben Mathurin, but I'll zoom out and say the lottery picks of the last 2 years, which is a major story for the Pacers this whole season. Is what is those two's involvement on this era of great Pacers basketball? Is it them on the team contributing in a major way, or is it them being part of a deal that lands the Pacers a player who contributes in a major way, or something in between? Mathurin was awesome. I think it's impossible to put into notes. I have so many notes about Ben Mathurin in this game. Just for stat line purposes, if you didn't see it or you haven't even heard this yet, 25 points. The Pacers' next two top scorers combined had 24 points. No one in the Cavs had more than 15. Like, dominated in his 19 minutes, right? That was the most of any Pacer, and he earned it. Guys in the Cavs played well over 19 minutes. He outscored all of them. 8 for 12 from the field. He made 5 threes, 4 free throws, so that's how you get to 25 points on just 12 shots, 3 rebounds and 1 assist. A lot of his goodness was scoring, but he played pretty solid defense as well in this game. Better defending game, certainly, than his game in Atlanta. Really good outing from Ben Mathurin, who's a plus 15, second best on the team behind Jarace, who we're going to talk about in a second. Really awesome Mathurin game. The standout thing for me, and you, if you've listened to this podcast every day, you know I've talked about this. When I did the practice notes last week, 5 threes is huge. One, because it's a slight tweak, but his shot has more arc, I think. I think a lot of people are noticing that, watching him now in these games. It wasn't that his old shot was a line drive, but it was just a little flatter. Now it looks like it's got more arc on it. Shot it very well in this game. And, of course, he's still getting foul calls. He led the team in free throw attempts, I believe, in both of these first 2 games. And so the blend of the Mathurin that the Pacers need and the Mathurin that exists is somewhere with a skill that makes him fit with, you know, the best ball handlers on the team, whether that's quick decision-making and passing, whether that's shooting, whatever. Well, the shooting was there in this game on top of everything else, getting to the rim where he was 3 for 4 inside the arc, 4 free throw attempts. He was awesome. Some specific standout plays. Obviously, he had a buzzer beater at the end of the first quarter. I say obviously, as if you did or did not watch the game. He had a buzzer beater at the end of the first quarter. Really good possession. Timed it perfectly. Got into the lane, got wherever he wanted. Slowed it up and in. They could not keep him out of the lane pretty much throughout the night. That was very impressive. Game management situation. He got in one possession. TJ McConnell drove under the basket like he does. He got stuck a little too far into the rim because he likes to jump out and kind of bump into guys in that fading layup. He was too deep. He couldn't do that. And Mathurin rushes under the basket from the perimeter to save him and bail him out, gets it, resets, and then gets a 3 later on the play. Really smart cut, heads up play, and he earned the 3 out of it. Like, this is progress stuff from Ben Mathurin in terms of reads and fitting in with the team. His start continued to be good. He had an awesome offensive rebound and putback in the second quarter. Him and Walker were killing it at the same time. And then they linked up. Great skip pass from Jarace Walker to Ben Mathurin for a 3. And Mathurin started the second half with 2 huge threes that the Pacers never looked back. They got the lead, I believe, early in the third quarter and never even got close to trailing again. Yes, that's correct. They were down 2 in the 2-1 in the opening part of the third quarter and then dominated the rest of the game. And a lot of that was Ben Mathurin doing very important things, shooting well, moving the ball well. He had a good stunt on defense coming in from the perimeter. His man actually made the shot, which stinks, but I mean, that was the right play, right? He had a possession where he passed it and instantly ran over the screen for the guy he passed it to, right? Just something is brewing. I said this in the last game, even though it's not as zippy as some of the other guards, compared to last year, Ben Mathurin, his decision-making is still quicker, right? Something is brewing here to me. I don't want to get too ahead of it. Defense matters a lot. The shot consistency is going to matter a lot, but I like what I've seen from Ben Mathurin in practices and in these preseason games. That's a huge deal for the Pacers, especially after the rookie season he had where he could get to the line whenever he wanted, basically. It's going to be a major deal to see what that progresses into for him later on as a scorer, a shooter, or whatever. But a really nice start to the preseason and a very, very good game against Cleveland. That's going to matter a lot this season. The more nights he has like that, the better for the Pacers as they assess what to do with him in terms of where he should play, with who, all that. Jarace Walker, the other lottery pick, the one more recent for the Pacers, was also awesome in this game. Jarace Walker, no misses, did not miss. 4 for 4, 3 for 3 from the field in this game. 2 of those were threes. He made threes in his first inning as well. He also got to the line and attempted 4 free throws. He had 12 points on 3 shots. Out efficiencying Mathurin's 25 points on 12 shots. Jarace with 12 on 3 shots, 4 boards, 1 assist, no turnovers for either of those guys. Man, were they efficient. Plus 18 for Jarace Walker in this game. Very strong impact on both ends, really. His pass to Mathurin, I already mentioned, was very impressive. That was his only assist. He's had those reads in both games now where he has a nice in-the-lane pass across the floor to someone else. His defense was better in this game than the last one. And just in general, you can see the comfort brewing for Walker in ways that it wasn't last year, right? I think part of when you think about what he has to do and adjust to in terms of not gambling on defense and staying down and being patient and making the reads and then assessing where he needs to go and being in the right positions, that applies to other principles of basketball besides just the gambling skill. And you can see how that processing is affecting him on offense and being in the right spots and making good plays and seeing where his teammates are going to be and then playing off of them and making good plays. So really nice outing from Jarace. Finished his only shot at the rim. Did all sorts of good stuff. And the lottery picks were both awesome. And that's key for the coming season. That's key for preseason. It's key for all sorts of stuff. And let's use the Walker part to talk about what we talked about yesterday, which is his spot in the rotation and him or Ben Shepherd as the backup 3. And someone rightly commented, hey, they're not going to do this position change to just not play him. And that's a good point. We'll get to more rotational deep dives later because there's a lot of interesting stuff. They had all of their top 10 for this game. Jarace was the backup 3. Ben Shepherd was not in the top 10 in terms of the rotation. So let's digest that as we think ahead. It looks like, as of right now, Jarace Walker's in the rotation for the coming season. And I don't think he's done anything to not suggest he earned that, right? That's how the Pacers are. They're going to make him earn it. But I think it's looking like that him and Mathurin are going to play. And it makes sense, right? They need to figure out as fast as they can the ability of those guys, the fit of those guys, what their ceiling could be for this team. And so playing them has to happen for that to be the case, even if Ben Shepherd might be right this second better than Jarace, or at least more impactful on the Pacers. You got to figure that stuff out. And so we don't know yet. Preseason's not over. We'll see where this kind of goes to. But Jarace was once again the backup 3, played in some bigger lineups. That's what's going to happen when he's the 3. The Pacers are talking about positional size in media day and trying to set their team up in a way where they have bigger guys out there at certain positions and get more skill at those spots. And that all points to Jarace Walker, right? So if he plays like this in these lineups with these players, guess what? He's going to keep getting these chances. So really good game from him. Really good game from Mathurin. Combined, really awesome night for the Pacers in that way, that their recent lottery picks who are very important to this season's success and really the long-term success of this era of the team. We're both really good. Both showed something and both showed that they deserve leashes to keep playing and playing quite a bit as time progresses. Walker was with the starters at one point. Like it was just Jarace at the 4 instead of Siakam and the rest of the starters. Mathurin didn't get as much time with the opening 5, but he was one of the first 3 subs in. We'll talk about the rotation in just a second, but it wasn't just like hockey sub, those guys going crazy in their own bench group. No, they were doing it with the other members of the Pacers that are important or have ball handling responsibilities. And that leads to the rest of the team. Let's talk about the rest of what went on in Cleveland last night, what it suggests about the Pacers, where things are going, rotations, defense, other notes, as we continue here on Locked On Pacers. Before we get to any of that, though, we need to talk about the lovely folks over at Gametime, the best way to get tickets to the sports, music, theater, comedy, whatever near I use it to get tickets to watch the New York Liberty, what a game they had, play the Dallas Wings last year, and it was awesome. They have the seat views on their app before you pay. Mine was spot on. They have curated deals to make it easier to find the best prices. Yep. Super deals. They have their lowest price guarantee, which was accurate. And if they're wrong, they'll credit you 110% of the difference if you find cheaper tickets elsewhere. They also have an event cancellation protection and job loss protection, and a new feature called Gametime Picks that makes getting tickets even easier by filtering out the fluff, so you just see the incredible deals. You don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets, toggling off hidden fees. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Gametime. We're back here on Locked On Pacers. Thanks for making us your first listen today and every single day. Your second listen, Danny Cunningham over on Locked On Cavs. I haven't interacted with him much. He's new to hosting Locked On Cavs, but he'll break down the other side of this. Jalen Tyson doing stuff for the Cavs. Jared Allen actually playing for the Cavs. All sorts of good stuff over there from a very interesting Cleveland team. New head coach. He has his own Substack going on. Check out Locked On Cavs. Let's keep it rolling here on Locked On Pacers. Plenty more to talk about from the non-lottery guys. Let's start with the starters in general. I'm making a face if you're not watching on YouTube. It wasn't great. The Cavs played none of their starters. They played Jared Allen, who I mentioned yesterday in the preview for this game. I want to see him play. The Pacers struggled with him last season. They struggled with him again. He had 13 points on 8 shots, 6 rebounds, 4 assists. He really kept it moving. They still outscored the Cavs with Allen out there. It didn't feel that way, but they did. But they couldn't stop him. And they also couldn't really stop Ty Jerome at 15 points. And Jalen Tyson had 11 points on 7 shots. And Dean Wade had 9 points on 8 shots. And Isaac Okoro was driving to the basket a lot and had 9 points on 6 shots. And George Niang was efficient. And Craig Porter was kind of efficient. And Jules Bernardo was making some threes. All of a sudden, you look around, every Cavs rotation player had a nice enough offensive game. And those guys mostly played through the third quarter or into the third quarter. And in the third quarter, the Pacers bench dominated whoever the Cavs had out there. Jared Allen did not play in the second half. But in the first half, it was Pacers starters versus Cavs backups. And the Cavs were winning at halftime. And they did shoot well from 3. That's part of it. But they did not an impressive game from the Pacers opening 5. They did not defend well at all in this game. Awful defense in the first half. Really strange amount of effort, right? A lot of going through the motions, it felt like early in this game. So they were coasting. I think they were down 9-2. Really early and before they kind of kicked it in gear, but it was full starters versus no starters besides Jared Allen. Like you'd expect to see the Pacers do better than they did, and it took them forever to really get going. They got really boosted by their recent lottery picks, as we just talked about. Cavs got whatever they wanted at the rim for that half, right? You can look at the shot charts and see a Cleveland team that last year didn't really play like this have a lot of success inside the arc and getting to the basket, especially in that first half. They actually shifted a little more to the mid-range and missed more of them in the second half than the first half. So I thought that was kind of concerning for the Pacers. 2 straight games where their defense has not been up to the level they hoped it would be, which still isn't like an exceptional defense, but better than this, certainly, especially after they talked about how they finished last year. It hasn't been there. The paint pressure for the Cavs, it's been a lot, and it's been really early in these games. So that's got to be better. Myles Turner was back, though. I think that is worth talking about with the starting 5, and he was the guy the Cavs were willing to live with in this game. The shifting of the ball handling responsibilities that I talked about from last game, where a lot of Nembhard and Siakam and less Haliburton, that kind of went back towards Haliburton. Haliburton had his 4 assists and 7 points. That's the exact same stats Siakam had, but Haliburton did it in 2 less shots. But it was more, spread out amongst that group this time, the mostly balanced starter attack. And then there's Myles Turner, who took 10 shots, and maybe there was some element of working him in, but he led the Pacers in scoring at halftime, and the Cavs were really willing to let him get up threes. He was 0 for 3 from deep and then made 5 of 7 2-point shots. So he moved inside the arc or could get by his man. He did well, did not shoot it well from 3. I didn't think Myles Turner played a particularly good defensive game. He was asked to do a lot in terms of covering Jared Allen and a ball handler, but I don't necessarily think that went very well, even though a lot of that was not on him, to be clear. But his offensive game was nice. He fit right in, and they hit the ground running in that way. But the starting 5 was back, which was noteworthy, and that group did well together. Again, we'll talk about rotation stuff in just a second. But Myles Turner didn't look like he missed their first game. He filled in right away and did well. And Isaiah Jackson was back as well. His only made shot, a jumper from the elbow, and it looked kind of nice. I don't know if that's the range that he'll land on this year. Maybe it's a little shorter than that, but The Pacers will take it. He had 3 blocks. He looked good on that end of the floor. The Pacers had 7 as a team, 3 of them Isaiah Jackson. His flip the ball in around the basket shots that were defining for his playoff experience last year, those did not fall. His only make was, I believe, a dunk or like a scoop up offensive rebound easy shot. But Isaiah Jackson's defense was good in this game. Looking forward to seeing more of the center rotation kind of blooming as the top 10 exists. Let's talk about the rotation that the Pacers deployed in this game and what we learned from it, what was interesting, right? The starters, easy as expected. Nothing new there. We already talked about Myles Turner. The first subs, right, last year in the playoffs, for those who remember, it was McConnell and Toppin would come in. They were the first 2 every time. And it was those 2, Shepherd and a big, that were the only bench guys anyway. But those 2 would always be the first 2. And often Siakam would come out and then he'd come back in when Haliburton would come out and they would stagger. And so this time, the first time, because they did hockey subs in Atlanta, right? So we're seeing mix and match groups. The first group of subs was Ben Mathurin and those 2 guys. So similar to the postseason. So then it was Haliburton, Mathurin, Toppin, McConnell, and Turner. So that was the 2 guard of Haliburton McConnell stuff. And that group picked up right where they left off. They looked pretty good together. Mathurin in there, Toppin in there, and Turner. So you have lots of ball handling, a lot of ball handling, and you're really hoping that you can shoot and outscore groups for a few seconds there. But that makes sense to me. Those are going to be probably your top 8 for much of the season. Then Jarace came in for Tyrese Haliburton, which also made sense. So then you got McConnell, Mathurin, Walker, Toppin, and Turner. And so that was the top 9. No Ben Shepherd. We already alluded to that part. Walker came in. He did fine. He played a good game. And then the next sub was Pascal Siakam for Myles Turner. And that one, that was an eyebrow raiser for me. Isaiah Jackson's been out. I don't want to read in too much to a preseason rotation, but that, again, I went, because that meant the front court was Siakam Toppin in the first quarter of the game. Maybe they're willing to go small like that all the time. They learned that it worked enough in the postseason. They're going to have some trouble guarding certain centers. If they live with that all the time, maybe they could try to put Jarace on the center, obviously. But the Toppin Siakam front court with bench guys, that was kind of new and interesting. Now, it did make sense in a way because the Walker Haliburton sub and the Siakam for Turner sub happened at the same time. So the Pacers had one of their stars on the floor, which is good. That makes sense. They should want to do that. But then Nesmith and Turner came in for Siakam and Toppin, not to like in the next quarter. So they had no stars at that stage, even though they had a better defensive group out there. So I think this is all, I don't want to read too much into one game, especially with 2 guys returning from injury, but I am very intrigued by how they kind of managed this. I got what they did with their first sub. I thought I got what they did with the second sub, especially if they're not going to have Isaiah Jackson be the backup 5, but I found all that to be very interesting, and trying to figure out the goals that they had with that group without being there and being able to ask about it was kind of interesting how they sorted through it and how they want to attack that. So that'll be worth watching, is how they say, hey, do we want 48 minutes of Haliburton Siakam? Is there a better way to maximize the minutes with them together and apart? What else can they do in that way as they sort this out and who should come in for who? But I thought that the first 9 subs, or the top 9 that came in, that all made sense. That was built out very similar to how I would imagine it would go, knowing that this is the top 9, right? Obviously, in the offseason, I predicted Ben Shepherd would play, but knowing the top 10 that we do now, it's about how I thought it would go, at least early. Then Haliburton came back in for McConnell, Nesmith and Turner came in, and then Nembhard came in for Mathurin, and all of a sudden I look down, I look back up. It's the starters in Jarace for Pascal. Whoa, that's new. That's different. That also went fine. Jarace can pass and shoot. Okay, he should fit. If he can guard 4s, he'll fit in that group, no problem. And that could be a really nice defensive group. We'll see how Siakam shakes in as a defender, because he had some rough ones. We'll talk about that later in my just generic notes section. But that was really interesting. So his starters with Walker for Siakam. And then they subbed to change that group. They brought in Isaiah Jackson for Jarace Walker and Siakam for Turner and Toppin for Nesmith. So it was Nembhard, Haliburton, and then a front court that was huge with Isaiah Jackson, Pascal Siakam, and Obi Toppin. So Siakam's the 3, something I wanted to see at times last year that is not easy to get to all the time. Huge lineup, right? So I found the rotation to be very normal for the first 16-ish minutes. Maybe Isaiah Jackson sneaks in there when the regular season starts, and then very, very, very interesting for the next 6 or so minutes with some of the ways they were possibly experimenting, possibly planned to experiment. But that's how we saw everybody. That's the groups that were all together. And then the first 5 that were in after they got rid of their normal top 10 rotation. So middle of the third quarter featured Ben Shepherd Okay, that makes sense. James Wiseman, that makes sense. Tristan Newton, Enrique Freeman, and Cole Swider, not Quentin Jackson. I thought that was kind of unique, but not a huge deal because Shepard's got to be in there. And then Cole Swider was the fifth guy, which is the most noteworthy one in terms of the ramifications. We'll talk about Swider in the next segment because did not have a nice night. But he clearly was ahead of Kendall Brown again in the rotation, but maybe didn't necessarily earn that, which we'll talk about in segment 3. Coming right up, we've got tons of general notes to talk about for almost every guy on the team. James Wiseman on the glass. Whoa, lots of other good stuff coming right up. Before we get to any of that, though, we've got to talk about the great folks over at FanDuel. NFL fans, game last night. Woo! You can keep the NFL season rolling with a big return over on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when it happens, you get that hunch in the middle of the game. Well, you can check out the latest stats to make sure your hunch is sound. You can view live up to the game play-by-play so you can see what's going on and figure out the right time to do what you want to do. And so much more, all on the same page where you place your bets. You can be informed, you can follow your gut, and you can make it all happen. And to make it even happen even more, FanDuel will get you started with $200 in bonus bets, guaranteed. Guaranteed $200 in bonus bets when you place your first $5 bet on FanDuel, and that is on FanDuel.com. We're back here on Locked On Pacers. Thanks for making us your first listen today and every single day. Your second listen, Locked On NBA. So you can go hear me and Gavin Shaw talk about Klay Thompson donning a Mavs jersey for the first time, and the Hornets looking kind of good, and some injuries, and Bronny and LeBron. When are they going to play together? Should this be an event? It's being talked about like that. We talk about it. I've actually thought that discussion was really interesting, despite it being a topic that most people would roll their eyes at. Let's keep it rolling. More notes from Pacers Cavs. I mentioned this already. Pascal Siakam got cooked by Isaac Okoro on the first 2 possessions. Ooh, it was bad. And that immediately made me go, oh boy. They need him to stay in front of guys already, and he can't be getting beat that bad by Isaac Okoro. Isaac Okoro is a fine player, but not one who should be getting him that easily. He had a beautiful pass later to, I forget who he set up with. Like not too long after that. Like he played an okay game, but I thought his defensive start was just dreadful. It had to be better. Turner slid right in offensively, even with the underwhelming defense. I thought the way he was able to find space from beyond the arc and then make something happen as a result of that was very impressive. I said this already, but I really liked the McConnell-Haliburton pairing picking up right where they left off. A big part of the Pacers' investment in both Nembhard and McConnell is this belief that they can get a lot out of these lineups with 2 point guards, and they did in this game with that as well. All right, let's get to some of the end of the bench guys because I have lots of notes about them, and they matter a little less, but still are a big deal. Pacers like their depth. Pacers have to make some cuts. Let's get to it. Tristan Newton. Some eye emoji moments. He was hitting jumpers in this game in a way we haven't really seen from him since the Pacers drafted him, and that includes some summer league struggles. He finished 3 for 7, but he was 2 for 4 for deep, so he had 8 points, 3 assists, 2 rebounds, and 2 turnovers. That was, I think, the most effective he's looked for the Pacers yet. Having moments where you make jumpers obviously makes you look better, but I thought he was noteworthy. I thought it was noteworthy how much better he looked in this game, how much more comfortable he looked, and that they had him in above Quentin Jackson, which maybe is nothing, but maybe I'm just a sucker for finding stuff in these rotational decisions. Quentin Jackson played the least playing time of anyone who actually played in this game, and he had 3 turnovers, so it didn't go particularly well after a really awesome game in Atlanta. That is what his summer and offseason so far with the Pacers has been defined by, is really high peaks and really low valleys. James Wiseman was with the 3rd unit as the center today. I mean, look, before saying whatever about his performance, 10 rebounds in under 11 minutes is insane. Like, that is ridiculously good. Him and Enrique Freeman were an absurdly good duo on the glass. A big part of the game changing for the Pacers in a big way. They were forcing misses at about the same clip for a lot of the second half, but they were cleaning up the glass. And Freeman and Jackson were a big part of it. Freeman, we'll get to in a second. He was terrific. But him and Wiseman together were awesome. And Wiseman played a nice game, 4 for 6 in this one. I thought he defended better in this game than he did in the last one, but just a ridiculous game on the glass. His offense really picked up at the start of the 4th quarter. I don't think he made a shot until that point, but I don't think he missed in the 4th quarter when he came alive. So better rebounding game, better defensive. Yeah, 4 for 4 in the 4th quarter. Better defensive game, really good rebounding game, showing all the reasons that the Pacers wanted to try to develop him and keep him rolling. Thought he played much better in this game than he did in the first one that he had. Enrique Freeman. I mean, I don't know what they can do about this. It might not matter. They already have him under a contract, but certainly potentially a storyline to monitor in the season. He's absolutely been one of the 15 best Pacers during preseason, maybe even a lower number than that, which matters as they settle whatever their roster and two-way situation will be. I mean, he was like legitimately good in this game, like not exceeding two-way expectations. Like, oh, this guy's playing good basketball for 16 and a half minutes, 3 for 6. He hit a 3. Didn't think I'd see that coming. And it was cool because he obviously went to Akron and is from Ohio and was a Cavs fan growing up. So he had a ton of family there, and you could hear it on the broadcast. The crowd went nuts a couple times. Half of them were because the Guardians beat the Tigers, and they kept showing the score and showing live feeds of it on there. And the other half was because Enrique Freeman was hooping. 9 points, 9 boards, 7 offensive rebounds. Whew, that was impressive. The effort's there, and he actually has really good technique to go with it. Really good Enrique Freeman game. I mean, you just watch it and see it, right? Like even if the stats are underwhelming with him, it's just obvious that he's playing well when you watch him. He had an awesome block. Tristan Thompson tried to poster him. He said, no, not today. Former Pacer veteran, sir, I'm going to block this. An assist. Really good Enrique Freeman game. He has stood out to me since Summer League, obviously, but was really good again. And him and Wiseman together, because I had this in my notes again, was a really good duo on the glass. Like, it worked against the Cavs. I'll be curious if I doubt they ever play in a front court together during the regular season, but it really worked in this game. Made you think. Cole Swider, noteworthy guy because he's been the way he has been used and deployed suggests he's the 15th man. He played good in Atlanta. In this one, not so good. I mean, so much of what he does is, if he's going to be a good shooter, you got to make threes, and he can get them up really easily. He took 7 in this game, effortless to get them up. And none of them were shots I thought, why did he take that? What was that? He also only made one of them. It was the last one. It was the dagger of the game, but he went 1 for 8, which was 1 for 7 from deep, on his way to 3 points and 1 steal for his final stat line. Got to be more efficient than that. Battling for a roster spot, especially, they need to see more than that kind of game. Again, he was much better in Atlanta than that. I think the blueprint of what he is or can be is much more obvious than some of the guys he's battling with because he's been in the NBA and is older. But he really struggles from the field. That said, I do continue to he'll dribble every so often, like towards lane. I'm like, oh, this is fine. This is working. This is like him actually moving past somebody or forcing a defense to like turn and look at him and see what's going on. So that's meaningful. Perhaps that could be like the Doug McDermott path of growth and skill if it ever comes to that point. Kendall Brown did not miss on the other side of that roster battle. He went 2 for 2, added a rebound and a steal, only playing the final 6:55 of action, though. No one else I had notes on. Ben Shepherd was missing from the field in this one, but not super concerned. He had a lot of ball handling responsibilities with the unit he had, and I have no other notes that are worth diving into. So the next time you'll hear this podcast, we'll be talking about the Grizzlies. Zach Edey coming to Indy. We'll see if he plays for Pacers Grizz on Monday. Over the weekend, I'll do a show, maybe with a guest, about some early preseason stuff, where the roster battle stands, and whatever the latest news is. And then Tuesday, it's Grizzlies time. Are talking about that Grizzlies game and keeping rolling through the preseason as we're doing here on Locked On Pacers. Hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. You can find me on Twitter at Tony R. East, and this podcast is there at Locked On Pacers. The best way to see all the topics in one place when the episode comes out and see if it's something you want to dive into. I hope every day the answer is yes. Of course, you want to dive into Locked On Pacers. Hope you all have a great weekend and am enjoying these games in this episode. Till Monday, everybody have a wonderful weekend.